Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks Captures Threats. In today's episode, in episode 31 of the chess guide, we'll be going over attacking with pawns. So, we're off of the discovered and double checks now. We're going on something completely different. So we have 4 examples today, where we have the first one just seeing how 3 pawns are better than 2 pawns attacking. The second one is a little pattern that you should recognise here, and a little tactic that you might need to know in a game scenario. The third example is from the Queen's Gambit and how the pawn attack can work there. And the last example is also another opening where we'll be using the Italian game and how the central pawns can be a pawn attacking with them. So, hopefully you understand what we're doing in today's video. So, let's start. So, attacking with pawns, obviously, we're specifying that means, obviously, in this example, we're using these 3 pawns to attack and black using those 2 pawns. Now, here we're not going to move the kings, just to show you how attacking with the pawns with multiple are better than just 2. So, with white to go first, we're going to move the central pawn. And here, these 2 are going to kind of, trot up the board very simultaneously, whereas a little bit different with this, as we've got to get all of these up before we try anything here. So, as we see here, as the pawns now they now level out on this rank, and we push each pawn up again. Now, as we see, don't get me wrong, from where they've gone, with all 3 of these white pawns starting here, they've actually only been able to go up 2 ranks, whereas the black pawns started here, and they've been able to go up 3 already. So what this kind of means here is that 2 pawns, if you want to push up with 2 pawns, it's going to be quicker, but now we'll see a little bit of a deficit with it. As here, when they push the pawn now, so we're all level on the 6th rank for each side, when you hear it's over, almost, especially in this scenario, because even if we was able to, let's say we did move the king here, these 2 pawns can't go against the king. If you push for a check here, you put the king here, and now the pawn can't queen, because you just capture it, and this pawn's now going to lose. And the only thing is that the king can't take this pawn, because they promote. So you're left in that scenario where you can't really do anything. But also, in this position, why 3 pawns are good is because of this check, where they're able to check us, we're able to go up. If we check them here, we're able to... They can't go up here, they can't go here now, because these pawns are blocking them. And if it tries to go here, we're able to force it with a move like this, that if they try anything silly here, we have this in which we can play a move where we push the king away and we're able to promote, and that would be checkmate in this scenario. So, hopefully you understand here is how, if you're attacking with 3 pawns, it's going to be a lot slower than 2 pawns, but it's going to be a lot more attacking in the fact that you've got that 1 extra support, that you'll be able to cover more squares, and in the long run it is much better. On to the second example now, where we have 3 pawns each for white and black. Now, being white's go, I'm going to let you have a few seconds, you can pause the video as well if you want, on how we can promote one of these pawns. So, I'll give you a few seconds now. So, hopefully you saw that if we push this pawn, we are going to lose. Now, the reasoning behind this is after something like a capture, firstly, now it's just dead even, and actually this king will be able to catch up to the pawn first. If you decide to push this pawn, it's pretty much the exact same thing. And if actually you take, and then they take back. Now, if you move the middle pawn, this is the right move, firstly. Now we need to know the second move after here. So let's say we captured with the A pawn. Now, can you find the move here? If you didn't find the first move, this will be a little bit clearer now. What move here are we able to do that will promote one of these pawns? If you had found that you push this pawn, it looks very weird called a sacrifice here. We are sacrificing this pawn. We're actually sacrificing both pawns here. So obviously if they capture this pawn, we were able to capture the pawn and promote. And if they capture our c6 pawn, we're able to push without any of these pawns getting us, and the king obviously will not reach in time. So this is a really known little pattern thing to understand, and how, you know, moving with the 3 pawns and attack, that sacrificing a pawn might be able to push another, for example, here. Okay, on to the third example. These last 2 examples are based on openings, and we're just showing you what we could have after the Queen's Gambit here, for example. So looking at just the pawns here for each side, as we see, this is the pawn structure for white, and this is the pawn structure for black. Very symmetrical, actually, almost exactly symmetrical, just some of these pawns on the A and B are not pushed. Though whites are pushed much more and obviously have a much greater effect here, as we're attacking a knight right now, and being pushed up here, it won't take that long for these 2 pawns to probably get onto the 5th rank here. As if we move the knight back, for example, you know, we've already pushed this pawn, threatening in this push, but after something like, if they try and stop it still, you know, we actually are still able to, because we have the use of the Queen's Gambit, having these 2 pieces here, we are actually able to still play it here, nearly. The only issue we have with it is that this pin. So you've got to be careful in some cases. But what we see here is, looking at this pawn push, we don't even have to push this pawn. We can actually already push here as well, if we want to show, you know, a bit more of an attack. Obviously, after captures, we're in a much better position, I would say, in most of it. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is just so that in a opening that we are all kind of familiar with now. I play it in the rapid increase. I've gone over it as well on a YouTube video. Now, we just got to understand that if we can put this into an opening that you will obviously have seen, then it will much help, you know, visualize the positions that you're in. So something like this, hopefully, you would be able to get. Now onto the last example, which is the Italian. So again, we've done a YouTube video on this, so hopefully you understand a position like this. And what we can see here is these 2 central pawns being a very, very scary threat here. Now the reason for this is because, as being white's go, we're able to push either pawn, I would say, here. So if we push this pawn here, we're attacking this knight now, and we're forcing it into a very, you know, undisclosed position that I don't think he wants to be in. And even pushing the other pawn, putting a bit more of an attack onto this knight, and if it does have this capture, we're now even in line with the queens here, and a very good pawn in the center compared to these 2 outside center pawns. So that's it for today's video. What we was trying to get across was just how using pawns, and especially multiple pawns, to attack will have very good effect when they're connected. Obviously, you cannot attack with pawns when they're unconnected unless you're trying to sacrifice them. Now, hopefully we got across with these 2 examples here about the openings, and hopefully you understand that we use the center pawn on this little pattern. Even if they take on this pawn, we push the a6 pawn. Now, bear in mind, we do not push this pawn, as we are definitely lost, as after you capture, we can't push forward with this. So that is it for today's video, so thank you and bye bye.